Wendy's phone lit up at 2:13 a.m. The soft vibration on the nightstand wouldn't have woken me if I hadn't already been lying there, staring at the ceiling, feeling that nagging sense that something was off. I reached over, barely glancing at the screen, until the words carved themselves into my brain. Last night was insane. I can still feel you on me. Same time tomorrow? Winking face. My pulse slammed in my ears. The sender's name wasn't saved, just a random number, but that didn't matter. The message said everything I needed to know. Beside me, Wendy lay curled up, her breathing slow and steady, completely unaware that her carefully built world was seconds from burning to the ground. My fingers hovered over the phone, tempted to scroll up, to dig deeper, but I didn't need more proof. The truth was already there, glowing in the dark. The weight in my chest tightened, but rage kept it from crushing me. If I woke her up now, she'd deny everything. Twist the story. Turn it around on me. No, this required patience. She thought she was in control, but she had no idea what was coming. The phone felt heavy in my hands, the message burning into my mind like a brand. My wife, Wendy, the woman I built a life with, the woman who once swore I was the only man she'd ever love, was lying to my face. And not just lying. Sneaking. Cheating. Living a double life while I was out working late, paying for the very bed she desecrated. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. No need to tip her off yet. The weight in my chest wasn't sadness anymore. It was something colder, sharper. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was an insult. Lying next to me, Wendy shifted slightly, sighing in her sleep, completely oblivious. My fingers curled into fists, but I forced myself to stay still. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. Storming in and screaming wouldn't satisfy me. I needed to know everything. Who he was, how long it had been going on, every filthy little detail she thought she had hidden. And then, when she least expected it, I'd rip her world apart. By the time my alarm went off at 6, I had barely closed my eyes. Wendy stretched lazily, running a hand through her blonde hair before smiling at me like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't sleeping with another man behind my back. "Morning, babe," she murmured, her voice thick with sleep. It took every ounce of restraint not to let my disgust show. I leaned in, kissed her on the forehead, and forced a smirk. "Morning. Sleep well?" She nodded, rolling onto her side, completely at ease. Like a baby." "You?" I shrugged, slipping out of bed, acting like today was just another normal day. Tossed and turned a bit. If only she knew why. Wendy headed to the shower while I grabbed my phone, stepping out onto the balcony under the pretense of checking emails. Instead, I scrolled through her messages, looking for anything else that could paint a bigger picture. But she was careful. Most of their conversations were deleted, except for the one mistake, the message that woke me up. If she was smart enough to cover her tracks, it meant she wasn't new to this. This wasn't a one-time slip-up. This was planned, rehearsed. That thought alone made my blood boil. When she came out, towel wrapped around her, smelling like vanilla and sin, I kept my face neutral. "Hey, you free for lunch today?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Lunch? Yeah. Thought we could meet up, maybe try that new place downtown." Her hesitation lasted a second too long. I can't. I have, lunch with Megan." "Megan." Right. Her go-to alibi whenever she needed a cover story. I almost laughed at how sloppy she was. "No problem," I said, making sure my disappointment sounded genuine. "Maybe tomorrow." She smiled, relieved. "Definitely. I bet." She left for work an hour later, but I wasn't far behind. I tailed her from a distance, weaving through traffic, keeping just enough space so she wouldn't notice. The entire time, my heart pounded, not from fear, but from the rush of knowing I was about to confirm the worst. And I did. She didn't drive to the office. She didn't meet Megan. She pulled into a hotel parking lot, her car slipping into a spot like it was second nature. I parked across the street, hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. A few minutes later, another car pulled in beside hers. A man stepped out. Tall. Athletic. Expensive suit. He looked around once before heading inside, and 30 seconds later, Wendy followed. She didn't even hesitate. I sat there, staring at the entrance, watching the doors swing shut behind her. My world should have collapsed right then and there. But all I felt was a strange sense of calm. The evidence was right in front of me now. There was no room for doubt, no space for excuses. And now, it was my turn to act. I didn't move. I sat there in my car, watching the hotel entrance like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to march inside, kick down that door, and drag Wendy out by the wrist, force her to look me in the eyes while I exposed every lie she had told. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a dramatic scene. No, she didn't deserve that kind of reaction. Instead, I took a deep breath, my grip on the steering wheel loosening as a different plan took shape. I needed more than just the sight of her walking into a hotel with another man. I needed undeniable proof, something that would leave her with no way out. And I knew exactly how to get it. Stepping out of the car, I crossed the street and headed for the hotel entrance. The lobby smelled like polished wood and expensive cologne, a place meant for quiet affairs and whispered betrayals. The receptionist barely glanced at me as I walked past, my stride confident, like I belonged there. I made my way to the elevator and hit the button. A man in a navy suit stepped in beside me, scrolling through his phone. My reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls looked foreign, jaw tight, eyes sharp, a man on the verge of something irreversible. The doors slid open on the 4th floor, and I stepped out. I didn't know the exact room, but I didn't need to. A hallway camera was mounted near the ceiling, its small red light blinking. That was my ticket. I took out my phone and snapped a quick picture of it before making my way back down, keeping my head low, blending in. Back in my car, I made a call. "Hey, Adam, I need a favor." Adam was an old college friend who now worked in private security. More importantly, he owed me one. What kind of favor? The kind where you don't ask too many questions. There was a pause, then a sigh. Fine. What do you need? Access to security footage from the Beaumont Hotel. 4th floor, today between noon and 1. Another pause. Jesus, Jake. You in trouble? Not me. Just need some proof. Adam didn't ask anything else, just muttered a curse and told me to give him an hour. I hung up and leaned back in my seat, watching the hotel doors. The idea of Wendy tangled up with another man, whispering things she used to say to me, laughing at some inside joke, made my stomach turn. But if I wanted to win this game, I had to keep my head clear. An hour later, Adam sent a file to my phone. I opened it, and there it was, grainy footage of Wendy stepping out of the elevator with her mystery man. They walked side by side, close but not touching, then stopped in front of a door. Room 417. He swiped the keycard, she smiled up at him, and they disappeared inside. I exhaled slowly, staring at the screen. This was it. Cold, hard proof. The final nail in the coffin of my marriage. Wendy walked out an hour later, smoothing her hair, adjusting her blouse like nothing had happened. The man followed a few minutes after, fixing his tie. He turned slightly toward the camera, and for the first time, I got a clear look at his face. My stomach dropped. I knew him. Logan Carter. A name I never expected to see in this mess. He wasn't some random stranger. He was my coworker. Rage flooded my veins. Of all the people in the world, she had to pick him? A guy I sat in meetings with, exchanged handshakes with? She wasn't just cheating, she was making a joke out of my entire life. My fingers hovered over my phone, torn between calling Wendy and driving straight to Logan's office to knock his teeth in. But that wasn't enough. Not yet. If I played this right, I could make both of them pay in ways they'd never see coming. I took a deep breath, forcing the anger down. My revenge had to be calculated. Precise. And it started now. The shock of seeing Logan's face faded quickly, replaced by something colder. This wasn't just about Wendy anymore. This was personal on another level. My wife and a man I worked with, someone who shook my hand, smiled at me across conference tables, acted like a friend. The sheer arrogance of it made my blood boil. I gripped the steering wheel, my mind already piecing together my next move. I couldn't just confront them in a blind rage. No, they didn't deserve an easy way out. They needed to feel what I felt, trapped, exposed, powerless. I started the car and drove, not home, not to work, but to a place where I could think clearly. A small cafe on the outskirts of town, quiet, the kind of place where no one would pay attention to a man sitting alone, planning his wife's downfall. My coffee sat untouched as I scrolled through the photos and video again. Wendy, laughing, looking up at Logan like he was the center of her world. My grip tightened on the phone. Step 1 was simple: gather more proof. A single video was good, but I needed more: texts, emails, anything that showed the depth of her betrayal. Lucky for me, Wendy wasn't exactly a tech genius. I logged into our shared phone account. We had been on the same plan for years, and she never changed the password. Within minutes, I had access to her call logs and text records. The number from last night popped up immediately. Dozens of calls, some lasting hours. Digging deeper, I found her email open on the iPad at home, because of course she never logged out. She had been sloppy, arrogant, thinking she was untouchable. The emails were worse than I expected. I can't stop thinking about yesterday. You know how to make me feel alive in ways Jake never could. Let's sneak away this weekend. He won't suspect a thing. You make me feel like a real woman. With Jake, I just feel stuck. Every word was a knife in my back. Every sentence a reminder of how she had been using me, stringing me along while she built a fantasy life behind my back. I copied everything. Screenshots, downloads, even voice messages she had sent him. Proof that would destroy her when the time came. The rage inside me simmered, but I wasn't done. Step 2, make them sweat. I sent Wendy a text. Hey, change of plans. I'm taking the afternoon off. Let's grab lunch. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Oh, babe, I wish I could, but I have a meeting with my manager. Maybe later? Lies. The same manager who had called out sick today? I grinned, but there was no humor in it. She had no idea what was coming. I sent Logan a message next. I didn't text him often, but today was different. Hey, man. You free for a drink tonight? Need to talk. A pause. Then a reply. Sure, everything okay? Yeah, just some stuff on my mind. Let's meet at Hudson's at 7. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, wondering if I knew. I hoped he was sweating already. By the time I got home, Wendy was already there, acting like nothing was wrong. She greeted me with a kiss, her smile as fake as her loyalty. How was your day? She asked, curling up on the couch beside me like a devoted wife. Busy, I said smoothly, draping an arm around her shoulders. Looking forward to unwinding tonight. She nuzzled closer, and I had to resist the urge to shove her away. Instead, I ran my fingers through her hair, keeping my expression calm. "By the way," I said casually, "Logan and I are grabbing drinks later." For the first time in years, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. She hit it fast, but I caught it. She forced a laugh. "That's nice. You guys don't usually hang out one-on-one." I shrugged. "Figured we should. You know, talk." Her grip on my hand tightened slightly. "About what?" I smiled, letting my thumb trace slow circles on her wrist. "Oh, just some things I found out today." Wendy's whole body stiffened. "Good. Let the paranoia sink in." I kissed her on the forehead, standing up. "Don't wait up for me, sweetheart." Her lips parted like she wanted to ask something, but she didn't. She just nodded, watching me go. As I walked out the door, I knew one thing for certain. By the time tonight was over, neither Wendy nor Logan would ever see me the same way again. Hudson's bar was dimly lit, filled with the low hum of conversation and clinking glasses. I arrived early, choosing a booth in the corner where I could watch the entrance. The anticipation burned in my chest, but my face remained unreadable. Logan was about to walk into his worst nightmare, and he didn't even know it yet. A few minutes later, he stepped inside, scanning the room before spotting me. He approached with that same easy confidence he always carried at work, relaxed, unbothered. As if he wasn't sneaking around with another man's wife. "Jake, my man," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Didn't expect this. What's on your mind?" I studied him. Broad shoulders, clean cut, always well dressed. A guy who prided himself on being the smartest one in the room. Except tonight, he wasn't. I smirked. "Just needed a drink. Thought we should catch up." Logan nodded, signaling the waitress. He ordered a whiskey. I ordered the same. Small talk filled the first few minutes, work, sports, harmless conversation. I let him settle in, let him think this was just a normal night. Then, I leaned forward, setting my glass down with a soft clink. "You ever been in a situation where you found out something you weren't supposed to know?" Logan raised an eyebrow, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "Depends on the situation. Let's say," I continued, keeping my tone casual, "someone close to you was hiding something. Lying. Betraying you. What would you do?" His grip on the glass tightened slightly. "That's a heavy question, man." I nodded. "Yeah. But it's important, don't you think? Knowing who you can trust." Something flickered in his expression. He shifted in his seat, forcing a chuckle. "You good, Jake? You seem different tonight." I tilted my head, watching him squirm. He wasn't stupid. He was starting to feel it now. That creeping doubt. "Funny thing," I said, pulling my phone from my pocket and placing it on the table, screen facing up. "I came across something interesting today." I tapped the screen, opening the security footage from the hotel. The grainy video played in silence, him and Wendy stepping into the elevator, walking to their room, the door clicking shut behind them. Logan froze. His face drained of color. His easy confidence shattered in an instant. My voice was calm, almost too calm. Imagine my surprise when I saw my wife walking into a hotel with my coworker. He swallowed hard. "Jake, listen." I held up a hand. "No. You listen." The weight of my words hung between us. He looked around as if searching for an escape, but there was none. I had him cornered. "You've been sleeping with Wendy," I said, voice steady. "How long?" Logan hesitated, then exhaled sharply. "Look, man, I didn't mean for this to happen." I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "Didn't mean for it to happen?" What, you just tripped and fell into my wife's bed? He rubbed his face, frustration and guilt battling in his expression. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Right, I said, leaning back. The late-night texts. The meetings in hotels. The lies. That just happened? He opened his mouth, then closed it, knowing there was no defense. I picked up my drink, took a slow sip, and let the silence suffocate him. So, tell me. What exactly did you two talk about when you weren't? I smirked, choosing my words carefully. Making each other feel alive? Logan flinched. He knew I had seen the messages. Jake, man, I swear, I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, I interrupted. And now, I get to decide what happens next. His breathing quickened. Are you gonna tell Wendy you know? I shook my head. Not yet. He blinked. Not yet? Because first, I continued, my voice low and sharp, I want you to know what it feels like to lose control. To wonder when the floor is going to collapse under you. His jaw clenched. What do you want? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'll let you know soon. Then, I stood up, tossing a few bills onto the table. Enjoy your drink, Logan. He didn't move, just sat there, rattled, unsure whether I was going to destroy him tomorrow or let him suffer in suspense. As I walked out of the bar, the night air felt electric against my skin. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Walking into my house that night, I felt different. Not defeated. Not broken. In control. Wendy sat on the couch, pretending to scroll through her phone, but I could see the tension in her posture. She had been waiting for me, probably replaying our earlier conversation, wondering if I knew something. Oh, I knew everything. She looked up, forcing a smile. Hey, babe. How was your night? I dropped my keys on the counter, watching her closely. Good. Logan and I had an interesting talk. She froze for just a second, barely noticeable, but I caught it. Oh. She tucked her hair behind her ear, keeping her voice light. What about? I sat down across from her, leaning back, pretending to relax. Work. Life. Trust. I let the last word hang in the air, watching for her reaction. Her fingers gripped her phone a little tighter. That's deep. Yeah. It got me thinking, I continued, tilting my head. You ever think about trust, Wendy? About how fragile it is? A flash of panic crossed her face, but she quickly covered it with a fake laugh. Of course. Trust is everything in a marriage. I almost laughed at the irony. Exactly. I let the silence stretch, making her sweat. She shifted in her seat. Jake, what's going on? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. I know, Wendy. Her breath hitched. Know what? I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. This. I tapped the screen, playing the security footage from the hotel. Her face drained of color as she watched herself walk into that room with Logan. The evidence was undeniable. She didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Then, she did exactly what I expected. Jake, it's not what it looks like, she blurted out, voice trembling. I laughed, shaking my head. That's the best you've got? After all the effort you put into sneaking around, that's your defense? Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't real. I knew Wendy too well. She wasn't crying because she felt guilty. She was crying because she got caught. I was lonely, she whispered, reaching for my hand. You were always so busy, so distant. I needed someone to. I yanked my hand away, my anger sharp. Don't. Don't you dare make this my fault. She flinched, but the act was slipping. I saw the frustration creeping in, the realization that her excuses weren't working. You don't understand, she tried again, voice shaking. It wasn't about love. It was just. I just needed excitement. I exhaled slowly, nodding. Excitement. Right. I stood up, pacing the room. So, instead of talking to me, instead of working through things, you decided to screw Logan behind my back. She pressed her lips together, her tears vanishing in an instant. The guilt act was over. You're being dramatic. I stopped, turning to her. Dramatic? I laughed bitterly. You destroyed our marriage, and I'm the one being dramatic? She crossed her arms, her expression shifting to something colder. So, what now? You're gonna leave me? The arrogance in her voice sent a fresh wave of rage through me. She still thought she had control, that she could manipulate her way out of this. I smirked. Oh, Wendy. You have no idea what's coming. Her confidence wavered. What do you mean? I grabbed my phone again and started scrolling. See, while you were busy sneaking around, I was busy too. Text records, emails, security footage. I looked up at her, my voice turning sharp. I have everything. Her face paled. You wouldn't. Expose you? I finished for her. Oh, I would. And not just to your friends. To your family. To your boss. To everyone. Panic flashed in her eyes. Jake, please, we can fix this. There's nothing to fix, I cut her off. You made your choice. Now, you deal with the consequences. She stared at me, breathing hard. For the first time since I confronted her, she looked genuinely afraid. Good. I picked up my keys and headed for the door. Where are you going? She called after me, her voice sharp. I paused, glancing back. To make sure you never forget what you've done. Then, I walked out, leaving her alone in the wreckage she created. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but it did nothing to cool the fire burning inside. Wendy's pathetic attempts at damage control replayed in my head, each excuse more insulting than the last. Lonely. Needed excitement. It wasn't about love. She really thought I'd buy that? She thought she could manipulate me into sweeping it under the rug. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I drove without a destination, my grip tight on the wheel. I could feel the storm inside me, a rage I had never known, but I refused to let it blind me. Revenge was best served cold, and I was about to deliver it ice-freaking cold. First, Logan. I pulled into a parking lot and grabbed my phone. Logan was a married man himself. I had met his wife, Rachel, a few times at work events. Sweet woman. She had no clue that the man she trusted was sneaking off to hotels with another man's wife. Time to change that. I scrolled through my files, selecting the most damning screenshots, texts, emails, the hotel footage. Then, with deliberate precision, I typed a message. Rachel, I think you deserve to know what your husband has been up to. I have proof. Call me. I attached the evidence and hit send. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then my phone buzzed. Incoming call, Rachel Carter. I answered, keeping my voice steady. Rachel. Silence. Then, a shaky breath. Tell me this is some kind of sick joke. I sighed. I wish it was. Another pause. Then, voice trembling, how long? Months, I said, giving her the ugly truth. I don't know how many times. But enough. A strangled sob broke through the line. He told me he was working late. That he was, her voice cracked. He wasn't, I said flatly. I'm sorry. A long silence followed. Then, the sound of something shattering, maybe a glass, maybe the illusion of her perfect marriage. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. The heartbreak was still there, but something else had settled in. Anger. "Thank you for telling me," she said, her tone steel. "He won't see this coming." I smiled, a dark satisfaction settling in my chest. "No, he won't." We ended the call, and I leaned back in my seat, exhaling slowly. One down. Now, Wendy. I wasn't done with her. Not even close. I scrolled through my contacts and called my lawyer, Daniel Harris. The man was a shark, a divorce attorney known for tearing cheaters apart in court. "Jake," he greeted, his voice smooth. "Didn't expect a call this late. What's up?" "I need to file for divorce. Immediately." A pause. "Infidelity?" "Without a doubt. I have proof. Texts, emails, hotel security footage." Daniel whistled. "That's airtight. We'll bury her." "Good," I said. "I want her to walk away with nothing." A chuckle. "I like your style. Let's meet first thing tomorrow." We ended the call, and I finally allowed myself a moment to breathe. The plan was in motion. The walls were closing in on Wendy, and she had no idea just how badly she was about to lose. I checked my phone again. A text from Rachel. "He just got home." I confronted him. "You were right," he tried to deny it at first, then admitted everything. "He's begging me not to leave. He's finished." "Perfect." I typed back. "Stay strong. He doesn't deserve you." She didn't reply, but she didn't need to. I knew she was already planning her own revenge. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I was calm. Focused. Wendy had probably spent the last hour panicking, rehearsing more lies, wondering how much I knew. I stepped inside. She was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes red and puffy. "Where the hell have you been?" she demanded, her voice sharp. I smiled. "Out." Her jaw clenched. "Jake, we need to talk." I leaned against the counter, arms folded. "Go ahead." She hesitated, then softened her tone, like she thought she could still manipulate me. "I know I messed up. But we can fix this." I laughed. "Fix this?" I gestured between us. "You mean us?" "Wendy, there is no us anymore." Her eyes flashed with anger. "So that's it? You're just going to throw everything away?" "No," I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice. "You threw everything away. I'm just taking out the trash." Her face twisted with rage. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" I smirked. "Smarter than you. Want to know why?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the email from my lawyer. "Filed for divorce. First thing in the morning." She stared at the screen, mouth opening and closing, words failing her. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon," I said, turning to leave. "Oh, and you might want to check your phone." Her brows furrowed. "What?" I nodded toward her purse. "Rachel knows." Her face went pale. She scrambled for her phone, unlocking it with shaking hands. A new message was waiting. "You destroyed my family. I hope it was worth it." I walked away as Wendy collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt free. Wendy's sobs filled the room, but they didn't move me. Not anymore. I stood in the doorway, watching as she crumbled under the weight of her own choices. The same woman who once thought she could manipulate me, lie to my face, and humiliate me was now on the floor, shaking, realizing she had lost everything. She looked up, eyes red and desperate. "Jake, please." I tilted my head. "Please what?" Her hands clenched into fists. I made a mistake, but it doesn't have to end like this. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. It ended the moment you decided to sneak around with Logan. I'm just making it official. She shot up, her whole body trembling. You want to punish me? Fine. I deserve it. But don't pretend you're innocent. You let our marriage get stale, you put work before me. I held up a hand, cutting her off. You're unbelievable. I let out a dry laugh. Even now, you can't just admit you screwed up. You have to blame me. She blinked rapidly, her mind scrambling for an angle, an excuse, anything that would let her regain control. But there was no control left. Jake, she whispered, stepping closer. Don't do this. I took a step back, disgust curling in my gut. I already did. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She hesitated, then grabbed it, reading the screen. Whatever she saw made her face twist in horror. I knew exactly what it was. I pulled out my own phone and checked my email. The official divorce filing confirmation from my lawyer had just been sent. To Wendy, to Logan, and to Rachel. Her voice cracked. You sent it to Rachel? I smirked. She deserved to know, don't you think? She clutched the phone like it was a grenade about to go off. Oh my God. Logan's going to lose everything. I shrugged. So are you. Her face contorted in fury. You son of a... Careful, Wendy, I cut in, my voice calm. You have nothing left to threaten me with. She let out a shaky breath, trying to steady herself. You want to destroy me, is that it? I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. No, Wendy. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure you feel it. She stared at me, hatred and regret swirling in her eyes. Then, something in her snapped. She hurled her phone across the room, screaming in frustration. I didn't flinch. She paced, running her hands through her hair. You don't understand. If Logan's wife leaves him, he won't help me. I'll have nothing. I raised an eyebrow. Did you really think he was going to leave Rachel for you? Her silence was my answer. She had built her entire affair on an illusion, that Logan actually cared about her beyond their sneaky hotel meetups. That he'd throw away his stable life to be with her. But now that I had exposed them, she was seeing the truth for the first time. I let her sit with it. Let her feel the crushing weight of everything falling apart. Finally, she turned back to me, eyes wild. We can fix this, she tried again. I know I messed up, but we... I laughed. Laughed. She froze. I took a step toward her, looking her dead in the eyes. Wendy. We are never fixing this. You made sure of that. She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing there was nothing left to say. I grabbed my jacket, heading for the door. Where are you going? She asked, her voice small. I glanced back. Out. For how long? I smirked. Forever. I walked out, shutting the door behind me. I didn't look back. As I stepped into the night, my phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Logan's begging me to stay. He's pathetic. I already called my lawyer. I smiled. Then, another message. This time from Daniel, my divorce attorney. Paperwork is in motion. She won't get a dime. Relief flooded through me. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I climbed into my car and drove, the weight of Wendy's betrayal finally lifting. She had thought she could play her little games and come out unscathed. But the game was over. And I had won.